Hello everyone, welcome to part 9 of this series. In this episode we are going to create character customization. This will take some time to do, however it will be really flexible once set up. Customization for our series will be limited to just the look of the character, not clothes, because clothes and armor is going to be tied to our inventory later on. Before we start, I would like to thank all of my Patreon supporters for the amazing support. This scene will be made available on Patreon. So before we get started, I actually do want to show what we're going to do with this. Now, this is going to be quite the setup and it will take some time. However, the nice thing about this is that we are going to work with list variables, which means it will be quite a flexible system and it will actually allow us to easily add a lot of options if we really wanted to. So right now I've limited every option I think to 11 choices. Bit of a weird number, just worked out that way. But you would easily be able to expand that list without much effort and extra work basically. So that's a nice thing. It will take some time to set up, but once it is set up, it is actually quite flexible. Now we're really simply going to open up a panel which has all of this visible. And what we're doing here is we're going to switch between all of these options. I am using Cinti's Modular Fantasy Heroes pack. I think it's called like that. Anyway, it will be in the description. And this honestly is just an amazing asset. It is not the cheapest asset, but I wouldn't really know how to achieve what I did today without it, with Cinti assets, quite frankly. It is honestly absolutely amazing. It will also house everything we will need for our inventory module as well in terms of clothing and armor. So it's not just for character customization. We'll be using the same asset for everything related to our inventory later on as well. And yeah, quite frankly, it's incredibly complicated in terms of amount of items you have in there, but really flexible once we set it all up. Now I've limited to just a male character here. Obviously there's female character options in that pack as well, so you can easily add that the same way I'm adding, well, all of these options really. So other than that, we are changing things like skin tone, but we're not just changing the skin tone. So when you look at skin color, you will see that his grayed out beard, his stubble gets darker as well. So it's a bit more than, just the basic skin color itself. Making all of those changes as well just to make sure it matches. For example, with this skin color, this is really, really light gray and it just looks incredibly strange with this skin color, for example. So making sure all of those changes fit just makes it look better. Hair automatically will impact our eyebrows as well, as those are, in the category of hair. If you don't want that, you can actually have a separate one for eyebrows and mismatch those if you want. It's completely up to you. I will show how we're going to do all of this, and you'll discover it's actually quite flexible. So it's going to be a bit of work, but it will be a really solid foundation. And obviously the nice thing is that, we're previewing real time just like we did for the inventory, and we have our results straight away. So yeah, let's get started. So here we have our well-known hero, and unfortunately for him, we are going to replace him. So yeah, it's been a good run, we had some fun, but it's time for him to go. Now, I will explain why I'm doing this as well, as I want that to be absolutely clear. So the reason I'm replacing this default character is because the default character is not modular. There's only so much we could do without opening up Blender and completely editing and customizing everything ourselves. Now, I'm going to take a shortcut, but it's not just a shortcut. Honestly, this asset that we're going to use is the Modular POLYGON Fantasy Hero characters. It's a modular one, and quite frankly, you wouldn't really be able to get the same results if you do it yourself, unless you're a great modeler, and then most likely you wouldn't be using Cinti assets. So it's not just a shortcut, it's something that is just a way better approach for what we're trying to do, and also allows us to get ahead when it comes to inventory later on. So we'd be able to properly have a good inventory system with a lot of choices for clothing, armor, etc. So not just for the character basic customization, but also for actually getting ahead and getting a really good custom look in our inventory. So in this asset, once you download it, you'll get a couple of folders. So we're going to go to prefab, and we're going to drag in the entire modular characters prefab. So we're going to go to our player. I'm going to hit reset here. So I'm going to hit on default, and then we're going to drag in this one. And right now that means everything on the character is enabled, which creates this mess. So yeah, it's a bit messy, but basically all of the components are active at the same time, and that's what we'll need to change. So when you go to all of these parts, you will need to deactivate all of those parts, and I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to speed that up a bit because, you know, it's no fun watching me do this for a couple of minutes. So I'd suggest hitting pause on the video and basically follow along, but we're going to turn everything off for the moment. Cool, so now that we've literally deselected everything that is part of a sub of a parent, so the actual assets themselves, so the actual meshes themselves, we are left with a invisible character. Now, for now, I'm not going to include gender setup, as this will actually be a lot more complicated. Well, not so much complicated only, but it will take a lot longer as well. So it's up to you now, right now, to decide if you are going to go with female or male for the moment. As yeah, I'm not, I forgot about these, so hard to see. As I'm not going to set that up right now, and yeah, basically decide if you want male, female for the moment. And we're going to select a base look, so quite important. So I'm going to go with the first head, really basic head, nothing special, but this will be our base. Then I'm going to go with eyebrows, and I'm just selecting, well, not really big fan of the unibrow look, to be honest, but yeah, not even a fan of this one. Yeah, this is fine, really standard, nothing special, just basic look. When it comes to the torso, I am selecting the first one, just like in Breath of the Wild. When the game starts, Link doesn't really have, well, much on. We're going to give him some pants just like Link, but it will just be him in his torso. If you are selecting a female character, I suggest having a bit more, but that's up to you. If you don't want to, completely fine. So we're going to select the first arm as well, and we're going to select basically the first choice that matches this look. And for now, clothing is not going to be important. I really do want clothing to be tied to the inventory module. So we'll be relying on what we set up today. It will definitely play a part in what we're doing with inventory later, but we won't really be using... There we go, these are normal shorts, aren't they? They look pretty normal. Yeah, looks pretty decent. So we'll definitely be relying on everything we set up right now, and that's the reason that clothing is not going to be included. It's because I don't want clothing to simply be well, some clothes. I really do want clothing to actually have a function. So for it to actually have stats, and definitely not be widely available from the start where you can just pick your look, and kind of removes all RPG elements from the project. Now for hair, hair is covered in all gender, so it's not gender specific, and I'm going to select this as a base. No, this one. Yeah, it's not the, just a normal haircut. Now, we need a default look, so if you want to have a different default look, go ahead, set something up, play around with all of the options that are available right here. I'm just going to go with this for the default look. It's completely fine. I do think it's important to, if you are really going to follow along this series, to not really give him proper clothing, as that kind of defeats the whole purpose of a RPG if you just already give him a armor set. But it's up to you, you don't have to do that. So now that we have a default look, I'm going to take one extra step, and it's not necessary, but I do think it's useful. So I'm going to duplicate this hair, and we'll get this name. So this is the default we selected, and I'm going to call it 0. So this will be the 0 hair. I'm going to drag it up as well, and this will be the 0 option. So let's turn the other one off, and this will be our 0 option. Now let's close all gender, then we're going to go to head. So the default head is already 0, 0, but so we're good there as well. When it comes to eyebrows, it's not. So I'm going to duplicate this one as well, rename it to 0, 0. Drag it up the list, and we're going to turn the other one off. And torso, we're already good. For the arms, we're already good. And for the hips, it doesn't matter because that's not something we're going to change in the customization. So we can keep that like that as well. So here is his new default look, and I'm going to address things like skin tone later on, as that's one of the last steps, and it's actually quite easy to do, but we need to make sure everything else is set up first. So that's why we can only do it at the end. So now that we have a new default look, let's make sure it all works. So wonderful. Yeah, I mean, it's it all works. Great. Perfect. Nothing has really changed. We've only swapped out the model. So good to know. Now next up, pretty much all of our work, and when I say pretty much, I really mean pretty much everything, is just going to take place in 2D view in our HUD. So let's switch to 2D view, and we're going to open up our, it's always weird when that happens in the start. Anyway, we're going to open up our menu. There we go. And in our menu, I'm going to turn off the inventory tab for now, and I'm going to turn on the system tab. And we have this ability button. You can create a new button if you want. I'm actually not going to use the ability button, so just going to use that one instead. So it will be change character, change button. So let's just call it change button. And the text will be change character. And that doesn't really fit, so let me make this a bit smaller. Let's make sure overflow is on. Still too small. Maybe 40. Just fits. Nah, that doesn't look good. 38, perfect. Going to change all of the other ones as well to 38. Don't have to, I just like it if the text is all the same. So there we go. So we made that change. Now we need an action to actually happen once we press on this, and the action is actually going to be tied to something new we're going to create. So let's create that first, and we're going to UI and we're going to create a panel. And I'm actually going to remove that, and we're going to do it, create the panel based on the menu, and then create a panel here. And that way we know the panel is fully scaled with the actual user interface. Then we're going to drag it down into, well, it can be inside of the change button. Why not? I'm going to scale this a bit, so it doesn't have to be all that big, but not too small either. We do definitely need some space here. So something like this. And let's drag it down a tiny bit. And this seems about fine. And let's make it black. It's already semi-transparent, so we're good there. And we have our new panel. And let's create the action straight away, just to make sure we're not actually going to skip that. I'm going to go for toggle active. So this will be a toggle. And we're going to drag in that panel. What we're going to do next is we're going to open up our inventory tab, content, and we're going to copy over the raw image. There we go. And this will be the first item in the panel. Now the reason it needs to be the first is because the buttons will need to be able to overlay this, just to make sure this is not getting in the way. So we're good there. Then next up, let's actually create some text. UI text. There we go. And this will be our header. Seems about right. And the header will be change character. About 50 large. That's perfect. And let's scale this, and there we go. That seems about right. Maybe it's a bit big, but you can obviously change it to whatever you like. So there we have our basics. So we have our UI raw image, and pretty sure this should actually be displaying our character from the start, and doesn't really seem to be doing that. So we're going to have a look at why. And let's turn off our menu, turn on our HUD, and just make sure this all works. Turn off our panel, and let's give this a try. So we open up our menu, we're straight away into system. I forgot to change that, but we can still swap obviously and change character. But as you can see right now, nothing is displaying in our inventory. There's no raw image and there's no character. Now the reason for this is actually something really simple, is because we set up a layer for our character. So we dragged in a new character, but he doesn't have any layers. So what we need to do is click on modular characters. I'm going to change this to the layer we set up for our inventory UI. Yes, change children. And now if we go to our 2D view, and we actually need to make sure it's all active. Turn off our HUD, we don't need to see that. Don't need to see our inventory either, but we do need to see our panel now, and we will see our character. So our character is here, he's all looking all happy, I suppose, and yeah, he's visible. So we're good there. I'm not going to move him around too much because it's, you know, it just looks better if he's in the exact same places with the inventory tab, just to not really see it shift that much. But that's, again, optional, you don't need to do that. So I'm going to keep him in the same place. He's looking good the way he is. And we're going to set up our first category. Now, I've only included changing the head, eyebrows, hair color, skin color, etc. If you want to add beards, for example, so facial hair or things like that, go ahead. It will actually be quite easy to do once you know how this all works. So we have our panel, and we're going to create a new group here. This will be an empty. And I'm actually going to resize this. I'm going to turn on gizmos. There we go. And it will be, yeah, this big. I'm going to make sure this is the same size actually. There we go. This will be called head or face, whatever you want prefer. So I'm going to go with head. I'm going to add an image here. And we're going to make this, I don't know, a semi-30, something like that. Semi-transparent as well, just to make it stand out at least a bit. There we go. And yeah, it seems like I need to make it a tiny bit smaller. Seems to overlay just a bit. And there we go. So that's our header. Now our header needs text, so let's add some text. UI text, and I'm going to call this title. Is title a good name? I think title is a good name. There we go. And this should be about, I'm going to go with 40 here. Overflow, white text, and there we go. I'm going to align it like this. Can give it a bit more space. And I'm going to name this face and align this as well. Perfect. So yeah, we have all of that now. I'm going to drag this just a tiny bit so it actually aligns with this text, and that's just nitpicking, but yeah, it just looks a tiny bit better. So we have our title, which is good. Title is not going to be dynamic or anything. It's literally just a text field. So nothing all that exciting going on there. Then our next item, let's go to game creator and UI, and we're going to do text variable. So the text will be depending on a variable, which we'll set up later. So let's make sure that's actually dragged in this group here, so we can use the snapping. And that's about right. Maybe this wasn't big enough. Need some space here. There we go. Yeah, it's fine if it sticks out a bit. The character is not going to be in a T-pose while in the actual game. And let's drag this a bit back and snap this, because we do need a little bit of space for the buttons as well. So this is going to be our text that we display from a list variable, so we'll call this display. And it won't have a value right now because we still need to create those. And then we're going to create two buttons. So game creator again, UI and button. And the buttons will be basically a left and right button, so nothing all that exciting going on there, but yeah. So there we go. And obviously these buttons will be relying on list variables as well. So we're at 71 high, then let's make sure that's also the width. There we go. And rename this left. Yeah, just left is fine. I'm going to remove the text. I'm not using any text. And let's insert an image. I'm only going to do one for now because I want to set up all of the actions first, And then once we've set up the actions, just duplicate it and just change one little thing. It's just a lot easier and faster. And for this, I use one of the icons that was in the fantasy bundle pack, but you know, if you have different icons you want to use, obviously go ahead, and it will be UI icon play backwards. There we go. There we go. So really simple button, nothing all that exciting, but you know, quite minimalistic. I do like it. So we have the first button set up, and the actions will follow in a bit. First we're going to set up everything it actually does rely on. So a lot of list variables. So game creator variable, list variable, and this first one will be head list variable options. I know that's a long name. Options, there we go. I'm not going to duplicate them. I'm literally going to just create new ones like this. Let's copy over this entire name. And what shall we name this to? So we had head list variable options. This should be text. Create a new one yet again. And this should be display. And then the last one is going to be choice. Then we're going to create a group of actions. Let's rename this to set action and duplicate it, and we'll call this clear action. So yeah, quite a lot. I've played around with this with so many different options, and just to make this work, and quite honestly this was the best outcome. It wasn't the only outcome. I chose, you know, a couple of different routes, and several led to the same end result, but this is the one I am happiest with, as it's the easiest to replicate and the most flexible. I think that's quite important as well. As I am only adding 11 options right now, you'll easily be able to add 20, 30, 40 if you really wanted to. So I think that's quite cool. And you'd be easily able to modify different parts of the body as well if you wanted to by just following along. So it's not the easiest, but trust me, it's also definitely not the most difficult one. So what we're going to do right now when it comes to our display here, we're already going to set where the information comes from. So remove that first part and just keep this in here. List variable, going to do index 0, and we're going to drag in our display. And yeah, that's it. So that's the text that will appear here. So quite important. Then when it comes to our left, we're going to already set up those actions just to make sure we're not skipping them. Sometimes I forget, so execute actions. And we're going to start off with our clear action. And let's go into the variable group, variable game objects, there we go. List variable. And we're going to get the information from options. And it will be again index 0, and no, the value should come from options. So we're going to go with choice here, and we're going to get it from list variable and that will be options, and as this is the left arrow, it will be previous. Now let me stop for a moment and actually explain what's going on here, but let me actually first complete this before stopping. This variable again index 0, and going to be display, and value from this variable previous as well, and this will be text, and then again execute and set. Now that it's all set up, let me pause and actually explain what I'm doing. So first off, we're going to be creating a set of options in our head list variable options. So this will be a set of meshes. This will be a set of text. This will be one option, and this will be one option. Now these one options are the ones that will be displayed right here. So this will be on the head, and the display will be the text. That's the only one we're going to see. So what we're doing here is we're clearing everything in this list we are creating. Then we are going to add an option from our list to these two, and that's what we're doing right here. And this basically allows us to only display one at a time, because we need to make sure that we only display one at a time and that not several things are active. We are selecting previous because this is the arrow to the left, and the arrow to the right will have next. And then once we do all of that, we are going to set them active on our character. So a bit of a mouthful, but that's what this actually is, and it will make a bit more sense once we complete these lists. Now that we've added all of the actions, we can actually duplicate our left, drag it about here. Let's rename it properly as well. So this will be right. It will need the correct item as well. So let's actually try to find this and just drag the other one here. There we go. And drag it into position. So all of the actions will be the same. So let's make sure we select next and we select next. So pretty straightforward. Next in the list, previous one in the list. Now let's start with creating that list. So I'm going to start with our options here. So these will be game objects. So this is correct. Let's add one and add one and add one and add one until we reach, I'm going to stop at 10. You can add more if you want to. Now we're going to get these options from our modular parts. So I use the male part. If you use female, just make sure you open female. Go to head and head all elements. Now the first option should always be the base you selected. So that's why I'm dragging in 0, because if you don't drag this in, basically you won't be able to switch back to the default look. And let's just drag in the other ones. I'm just selecting the first 10. I haven't even really looked at the different ones, but obviously go ahead and check those out first, and you can add others. You can add the entire list as well. Pretty sure I'm skipping some here. Yeah, there we go. I forgot 3 and I forgot 5. You know what? Let me just add those as well. The order doesn't really matter anyway. But it does annoy me if I can't see, so I'm just going to drag it in. Trust me, it really doesn't matter, but I do want to see if I'm missing something here. Oh yeah, I was at 11. You know what, I'm just gonna add them all. Why not? How many do we have? 22. My god, that's a list. Cool. So we have 12, 13, 14, 15, and this might actually be a good idea to show how flexible it really is, like I claimed it was. So at least now you're sure it really is. So we have all of the options that are available in this list. The no elements ones are helmets and masks and etc. And as I said before, we are just going to change his default look because we want every clothing item to be a armor piece or equipment piece and not just there for visual looks. Now I did give him normal pants because, you know, him running around in underwear might not be the best idea. And this actually closely matches the look we have in Breath of the Wild as well. So we have all of the head options here. So there's 22 different, including this one actually, 23 different options. So that's quite the list. Then on text, we unfortunately need to replicate that work. Now text might be the most optional of all, but I do actually want to display some information that you actually know where to go as a player. So phase 00 might not be the most exciting text, considering that every head actually has a distinct look. You know, you might want to consider actually putting in the extra work and giving them proper names, but pretty sure most actual games just do it like this as well. They don't give them names. It's just, you know, face number, here you are. But yeah, considering it's a flexible piece of text, you can get creative and enter something more interesting if you really wanted to. Now, the nice thing here is that obviously this takes a bit of time to set up, but we're just doing this for the face, and then once we get to the rest of the parts, we can actually duplicate this entire set and it will save us loads of time. So that's actually pretty nice. 20, almost there, and 22. It was 22, right? Just double checking. Yep, there we go. Cool. So then display is going to be the text, and that will be a string as well, and it's just going to be phase 00 because that's the default. And for choice, that we're going to do the same thing. We're only going to drag in the default head because that's the default choice. And that's it. These are not going to contain anything else. So they're just going to contain the base look. Now that we've done all of that mundane work, we're going to set up the actual actions, and the action list will actually be incredibly short, so there's not much exciting going on here. So we're going to set active, and we're going to depend on our list variable, of course. So this will be index 0, and we're going to depend on our choice. And unfortunately, clear actions will be a tiny bit more work. So I'm actually going to copy this over. There we go. And turn that off. And yeah, we do need to do all numbers. So again, this is only something you have to do, really have to do once. So keep that in mind. And yeah, this is a bit mundane, but at the same time, do realize we are setting up 22 different head options. So it's not like it's a short list or anything like that. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure, might be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, there was no easier way to do this, as there's no all option here. So there's just index 0, first, last, etc. So that's why I'm doing it like this. If you have a better alternative, please let me know. But as far as I'm aware, there is no option to just select it all, as that is what we are doing. But yeah, I haven't seen it in the list. And there we go, 22. So tiny bit of work, but at the same time, you know, we're just duplicating. It's not like it's special work or anything like that. So now that we've done that, we have the entire list, and I'm actually going to give this a try as well. I just want to make sure we didn't make any mistakes here. So we're entering play mode straight away. Now I do see the text is wrong, so we need to change that. And as you can see, it is changing, so you know, mind the minuscule text, but the text is actually properly displaying. We're going forward, we're going backwards, and we have all of our options. Was that really already 22? Wow, the last ones are just makeup. Oh well. So yeah, we have all of our options here. So pretty cool. And it's all working. Let's actually make sure this text is correct. So we had 40 here. Okay, let's do 40 as well. Let's turn on overflow just in case. Align it properly, and I'm going to change the text color just to light gray, just for it to stand out a bit more. Now that we've set up the head, we are just going to duplicate this. And next up, I think, is hair. So let's drag this down. There we go. Let's call this hair as well. And let's rename this, so hair. And hair. Now when it comes to these actions, as you can see straight away, they're actually taking all of the duplicates we did set. So that's actually pretty nice. So saves a lot of time. Like I said, you only need to do it once, and automatically it picks the duplicate options here. So that's pretty cool. Now when it comes to the options, we do need to drag in the new ones, obviously. So let's go ahead and do that as well. Just like before, you know, make sure we have the base first, and I'm just going to drag in some options. I'm going to keep the same 22 we set up. I'm pretty sure there's more options here, but well, as you could see, you know, if you want to have it all, just duplicate it. So I'm pretty sure no one would have guessed that the most amount of work you'd be doing is literally dragging and dropping in. But yeah. it actually does not take that much time either. And I'm sure you could create some custom actions for this, but I doubt that you'd be saving time in the end. There we go. So 22 hair options, which is pretty nice. And there are more, I haven't tried them out, but pretty content with already having this amount of options. It's more than most games actually offer. So now, when it comes to our title, we are going to change the text, of course. So this will be hair. Display already picks up our hair list, so we're good there. Left, right already pick up our hair lists as well. So there's not really anything else you need to do, as you can see. That's why I wanted to make sure they're all grouped together. So when you duplicate it, it picks the right ones. Saves a lot of time. So if you would have had these actions outside of this group, you would have had to manually change that all. So grouping things together actually really is useful. Now we do need to make sure this is all different, and yes, that will again be quite a bit of work, but we already saved tons of time by doing it this way. Especially with hair, I would see the benefit of actually, coming up with some custom names maybe, but that's up to you. Then you really have to try them out as well. Costs a bit more time. And there we go. 22 hair options all done. So that really didn't take that long. So we can do our next one, which was eyebrows. Let me drag that down. All aligned, nice. So I'm just calling this brow because it takes a bit more space. But you can do eyebrows, of course, but there we go, brow. Now there aren't 22 options for eyebrows. Would have been absolutely ridiculous if that was the case, but yeah, there's a bit less options. So brow, there we go. And for hair, I'm pretty sure I completely forgot to set the defaults. Yeah, there we go. So let's do hair 0, and our default choice for hair is 0 as well. So we have all of the hair. For the all gender category, we're done because that's the only thing we're picking here. The other ones are attachments, which we are going to use for our inventory system because they're pretty cool, but they're not going to be included with this setup. So browse, eyebrows. So let's make sure we have the list open. Brow list options, and let's drag them all in. Now as you can see, there's only 11 options here. So that's going to make it actually pretty much the same in terms of time, as we'll need to remove some of the options here. And there we go. All 11 options. Let's make sure this is renamed as well. And almost there. Now I initially did not actually set up facial hair, but we might as well just add it and actually have a really complete feature set, as it is one of the only ones I didn't actually set up initially. Yeah, I did too many. There we go. So we have all of our eyebrows. Now let's just make sure this one is also set and our default choice is also set. And there we go. We have all of our options all set up. We don't need to do anything anymore. Or maybe we do and I'm just forgetting, so. But I'm pretty sure it's all actually set up correctly. So now that we have eyebrows as well, let's actually have a look at facial hair and just include that. There's 18 options. And in this case, because I do want there to be an option without anything, I'm actually going to duplicate, because they're all facial hair if I'm correct. So if I turn them on, they're all facial hair. So I'm going to turn this one on, make it the default 0, and I'm going to remove the mesh here. So there's not actually anything here, so this is just going to be an empty, but that's because it's going to be the default. So let's turn it on, and as you can see, nothing happens. But we do need an option without any facial hair. So let's duplicate brow here, and let's rename this. So let's yeah, facial hair is a bit of a long name. Let's call it beards. Might not be the best name, but it's a bit too long, and otherwise I'd have to resize everything, and I do actually like the text. So it's still going to be the title here, by the way, and just going to do beards here. There we go. Let's actually drag this down first. There we go. So we have our title, our display, that's all fine as well. Just need to change all of this. And obviously, if you do want, the proper naming, go ahead and just change it to facial hair, but you need to make it fit. So the text would be a bit smaller, and I do personally like that it's a bit bigger. There we go. So let's already drag in that default now that we have this open. Let's change this straight away as well. So just beard, not beards. Change all of the text. And I copied the wrong one, of course. That's fine. Doesn't matter all that much. And there we go, we have all of our beard text. Now let's just drag in those options, create a couple more. Should have just copied over the other one, but oh well. Doesn't really change that much. And we have our beard options. So the default, which is no beard, and all of these other ones. And there we go, all facial hair options are available as well. So pretty cool. Let's try this out and just make sure it all works, and if it all works we can head over to color. So we have our faces, and well, we already set this up, but as you can see that all works. So let's just keep one. We have our haircuts. Let's see what... There's some interesting options here. That's pretty cool. Cool. So we have brow, and yeah, we have all of our options there as well. That's nice. And we have facial hair as well. Pretty cool. So let's actually add a... I saw I forgot one there. So let's give him a proper beard. So we have all of that. That's good. So all of this is working. And I did notice that I forgot one in the beard options here. There we go. I forgot number 4. Perfect. So all of this is working. I'm going to separate them in 2 groups, and you know, this is optional. It's just for the visual look, really. But I'm going to take hair, brow, and beard. I'm going to drag those all down actually. So let's grab beards. There we go. Let's grab brow as well. And hair. Actually do need some space for one, I forgot about that. So yeah, about here is fine. Unfortunately, you can't select them all, which is a shame. I do see this is not properly aligned. There we go. Because if you select them all, then for some reason the alignment no longer works, which is a shame. There we go. So we have our 2 groups. Now let's just duplicate hair. Doesn't really matter what much which we do. And let's rename this to hair color. I'm going to drag this down. And we won't really be using any of this. I'm actually going to remove all of them. But I just wanted to have it all, you know, have the same look and feel. So that's why hair color. And let's do the same with, well, let's just set this one up first, and then we will do skin color as well. So our hair color is going to have some options, so let's create them. So game creator, UI, and button. Let's make sure we drag it in here. Remove the text. There we go. And I'm just going to resize it the same, that way it properly fits. And you can have more options here, by the way. I'm just going to keep both skin color and hair color exactly the same in terms of options. I'm going to add our first action. And that's going to be a change material. Now, unfortunately, we can't just change with an action, change the existing material. You could create a custom action, but again, that's something that definitely would work and in the end just take up a lot more time. So that's why I'm not going through that process. And in order to get there, we do need to find where the default is. So I am going to lock this. So we have it here. And I'm going to find out well, I can't lock it. I'm going to find out where we are. So Fantasy Hero, that's the default. Now what I did is I duplicated this first one, so just Ctrl D and you have a duplicate. And we have all of these values, so skin, stubble, scar, well, I didn't change scar, but you could change that as well. And we have hair. So hair, skin, and stubble, those are the three that we are actually adjusting. You can adjust more if you want to. And what I did next is I have that one as a base just because I want to make sure I keep the original just in case I mess something up. Always keep the original. And then we have 0, 1, which as you can see, there's a couple things I changed. So the stubble is a bit darker, skin color is a bit darker, and the hair is a bit darker. Then when it comes to this option, the same. Stubble is darker, skin color is darker, and hair color is close to black. And then for the fourth duplicate, I went with this option in terms of hair, orange hair, lighter skin color, and slightly lighter stubble, or I didn't even change the stubble, would be possible as well. Now, those are the defaults I set, so I'm not going to do it again and waste time finding the correct colors. But yeah, that's what I did. So 4 duplicates, and the default colors are just all a tiny bit different. So a bit darker and etc. So yeah, please do the same. And once we've done that, and you can go with something entirely different if you want, obviously, and you could add scar colors, and I'm not going to do that, I'm fine with this. Then once we've all done that, we're going to go back to our first button, and we are going to set the action that the first one will be the default. So again, 0, 0, just to keep everything kind of consistent. We're going to keep the default material as the first option, and that will be for everything. Now the target renderer is asking which object are we going to change, and because we set up list variables, we're actually going to change a list variable. So the one we set up, so we're going to do current, because we want to color the current indexed option, and then target renderer, we are going to, in this case, target the head list choice. And where did I put those? There we go. So head list choice, and keep in mind it has to be the choice one because that's the one that is actually displayed. And then keep this the same. Then we're going to, well, this is going to be hair color, by the way, not skin color, so it shouldn't be head, it should be hair, sorry about that. So hair choice. Then we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to drag in our brow choice as well. And if you want these to have separate values so you can mix and match, please go ahead, just duplicate what we're going to create here. I'm fine with, all hair colors actually matching each other. And we've done brow, and we're going to add beard as well. And we have beard choice. So we have all of these set up, and that's going to be the default. Now in order to match this, I will match the colors of this as well, but we'll do that a bit later. It doesn't have to happen right now. And we're going to duplicate this button. And we have the same ones, but now we just need to drag in the new material. And there we go. So that's what we're going to change here. Then duplicate it again, and we drag in the 2. There we go. And duplicate it again, and we're going to drag in the third one. Now, the reason you can still mix and match different hair colors with different skin colors is because even though we are applying the same material to everything, we are only applying it to these objects. That's why you could still have a different skin color with a different hair color even though they are in the same material. So that's pretty cool. There we go. So now that we have all of those, let's actually, I think I forgot one, didn't I? I think I forgot to actually duplicate it. 0, 1, 3, yeah, I forgot to duplicate it. Let's rename this to 3. And rename this to 2, just to keep it organized and makes it easier to follow. So we have 1, 1, 2, 3. So we just need the second one. And there we go. Now let's drag these out as well. So this is option 2. This is option 3. And option 4. And I'm not perfectly aligned, which is a bit annoying. There we go. Perfect. So our 4 options here, and you can go ahead and change this and add more options if you want. Just add a new material. I think 4 options is fine for me personally, but again, that's a nice thing here is you can get creative and just add a bunch more. There we go. So now just to match this, I'm going to copy over those colors. So just to make it easier, I'm going to open up my notepad. There we go. I'm going to go to the first one, and this is going to be hair, so let's just make sure we copy those values. And this one, well, that's an easy one to copy over. And the last one, there we go. So all done, and let's now change the color of these sprites. So I should have copied this first. Let's actually do the last one first because we still have that in the clipboard. There we go. This one is actually all black, so no need to. It's all zeros. Let's copy over this value. And this is a little detail that might even be exaggerated, but at least it will literally match the color of the hair we're going for. I think that's a pretty little cool detail. And there we go. So we have all of our options for hair color. Now, before I start copying this over for skin color, I just want to make sure it works. So let's hit play. So let's there we go. So default, brown, black, and orange. Pretty cool. So yeah, that all works. Now keep in mind that right now we're changing the default choice. So that's why this is still going to be this color, then press again and it will match. So just a little detail to keep in mind. Now that we have hair color, I'm going to duplicate this and we're going to do skin color as well. Let's rename this to skin color. Change our title. And then the button action. So this will remain the same. So we're still going to use the same material, but unfortunately we'll need to change the options here, of course. So we're going to drag in our first one, which is just head. Headless choice. There we go. Let's do that for all. And that's where it stops being easy, unfortunately. So what we need to do now is we need to actually find all of these body parts. And that is a bit of a manual process because we didn't set up a list for this. We might set up a list later once we tackle inventory, but a lot of the clothing items won't have any skin color anyway. So yes, this is going to be a tiny bit of a manual process. So what we're going to do with the first one, let's start off with the first one. And we'll need to find all of his body parts. So except for the head, of course, because we already have the head here, but now we need to find the rest of the body parts. So we're going to just start with the torso. And this should not be a list variable either. Game object. And we start with our torso. Let's keep that all open. Upper arm. I should have changed this first. Upper arm, let's duplicate this one. Upper left. Duplicate this one. Yeah, sometimes I just have to double check if I'm actually changing the right thing. This can be a bit annoying. Now hips is not something we need to change because there's no actual skin color. This is just shorts, and this is not something that I'll ever change because I'm not going to have him run around with any clothes. So hips will just never be a part of that. If you do want that, obviously include hips, but... And we have our left leg and the right leg. Now, this is a lot of parts, and that's simply because the modular pack is really modular. So yeah, there are a lot of objects here. And they're all separate objects, which is why it takes a bit more work. So let's change all of these to game object as well. And I'm thinking this might be a bit faster. I'm going to try this out, and maybe I'm completely wrong and it's actually not faster at all, but let's try to duplicate this. So we're starting off with torso. Is that really the first one? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to paste these over. And in order to make this a bit less boring, I will speed up this video about right now. Cool. Now that all of that has been set up, and yes, that was a bit of mundane work, we're going to do the same thing again when it comes to our colors. So we're going to copy over those skin colors. And our last one. There we go. Well, didn't have to copy it over. We still have it in the clipboard. So let's change this as well. And the last one is our default. There we go. So everything set up. Yeah, it took a bit of work. Want to drag them down, and I definitely am going to try to just do it like this. Bit of a stable hand. There we go. So everything completely set up. So we actually did a bit more than I even did in my intro. We had a lot more options here. Well, we had pretty much all options. We have beards as well. Let's give this a try and see if we did everything correctly. And I'm going to really give this a try. So I'm going to close down the panel. Can't even find it anymore. There we go. Close down the panel, close down the system tab, have our default inventory open, have our menu closed, and have the HUD open, and hit play. Perfect, so let's have one last look. That look is going to go right now. So change character. Let's keep it with this car. This all works fine, so we're good there. Going to keep this skin color. Change his hair. Going to go for long hair for once. Keep this brow. That's a full beard. We're going to keep this beard. And keep it black. Yeah, we're going to keep it black. And yeah, let's get back to our scene. And there we have him, our new character. Well, our camera rotates really fast, so we can't see him for long. But yeah, there's a new character. So pretty cool. I know this was a bit of a long video, but it is definitely a perfect way to set it all up. And well, perfect in my opinion, of course. But the nice thing about it, that it's really flexible, and as you can see with the way I addressed, you know, the beards, for example, it's really not that much effort to just add something else. It's not a lot of effort to add different types of options, add more options. It's all not that hard once it's properly set up. So yeah, I'm personally pretty happy with this outcome, and I think it was definitely worth it to have a bit more options here. So yeah, definitely pretty cool. So really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.